My name's David Millard from the University of Southampton. I wanted to tell you a little bit about EdShare. It's a project that's been going on for about 6 years. We started off very much looking at the early world of learning objects, learning object repositories and OER, and really asking ourselves the question, what do we do with a problem like teaching and learning repositories? The problem was that there was quite an old-fashioned approach to learning objects that didn't really seem to be relevant in the kind of Web 2 world that was evolving at the time. So if you haven't encountered learning objects before, the idea of a learning object is that you take a whole bunch of different materials, you package that all up into a particular object, you associate a whole variety of different metadata fields with that object, and that metadata can be quite complicated. You then represent that as an XML manifest, you zip the whole thing up, and then that becomes something that you can deposit and teachers can download and use. And what we were finding in around 2006, 2007 was that when we sat down with real teachers to use this kind of material, it was really alien to them. So they said things like, I know what a zip file is, but when I open it up, I don't have a clue what do I have to do to make anything work. What's this XML thing? I've never come across one of those before. The terms used in learning objects, they're not terms that teachers and lecturers use in their everyday practice. So for example, we might be talking about scaffolding, and they'd repeatedly ask us, what does that mean? Whereas if you're talking about supporting materials, that's in plain English, they really understood it. And perhaps most telling, we would talk to teachers, lecturers, about how they currently shared resources and manage their digital resources. And they would tell us that they don't have any digital resources. So we'd say, well, what do you do, the next year when you want to reuse it? And they'd say, well, I find it from the previous year, and if I want to change it, I'll type it in again and print it out. And then I'd say, well, what would you do with the file? And some of them wouldn't even save the file on their own machines. So what became obvious to us was that there was an absolutely enormous gap between what people who were talking about learning objects wanted teachers to do and what teachers were actually doing. Okay, so a massive gap. So we went sort of back to basics and we started thinking, well, what is a repository? Because that's what these things were. They were repositories of learning objects. We said, well, what is a repository? What is it that it does for you? And we realised that repositories are really about archiving things. They're about storing stuff safely, permanently, formally for the future. They're very often curated, they're very often monitored. But actually, that doesn't fit teaching materials at all. Teaching materials aren't dead. They're not something that have been produced and never get touched again. They're these living things that change every year. Very often, they're not polished to death. They're not curated. They're looked after by individuals. So we said, was there a different model for sharing that we could use for a repository that would be a better model? So this, remember, was about 2006, 2007. So what we were finding is there were loads of sharing sites coming out at that time. So YouTube had just appeared, Flickr, social news sites like Dig, these kind of things were becoming popular. So we said, well, what is it that these sites do that people find useful? Because they're not about archiving. People don't archive videos on YouTube. So what are they actually trying to do? And we essentially said there seems to be 3 different things that they're offering. So they host your stuff, they get them online really easily, they allow you to organise it, tag it, put it into channels or albums, whatever it might be, and they give you some sort of community feeling. One thing they're not about is altruism. They're not about people saying, I'm going to share this video for the good of the world. People actually get a real service of value from it. So we said, what would a learning object repository look like if it was based on those 3 things, not archiving? And that's really where the whole of the EdShare idea came from. So the first thing is for hosting. Learning objects have something like 40 different fields of metadata. So we said, actually, we need to have very, very simple metadata. We need to have as much metadata that's automatic as possible and as little that's manual as possible. EdShare out the box has something like 5 or 6 fields of metadata, and that's it. And in fact, you can upload something pretty much by giving it a title and just shoving it in there, and that's fine. So that was a key thing, was to lower the barrier for getting stuff in there. Existing object repositories at the time, when you went to the pages, what you got was a download link. And we basically thought, well, imagine how successful YouTube would be if you actually had a download link for the video and then you had to install a video player with the right codec for what you were looking at. So we decided that inline previews is really important. And so for EdShare, we developed stuff that would preview docs, spreadsheets, PDFs, obviously do images, video, audio, most of the major formats, so that you'd actually be able to see it in the browser. So it becomes not about the download file, but about the page, if you like. In terms of organisation, we gave people a couple of different ways of doing it. So you can upload zips. which people can download at once. You can group things together in a page itself. We gave people collections, so they can create a collection of different resources that perhaps they want to use for a course or goes along with a particular book or a particular thing they're doing, and also allowed people to tag. So again, it wasn't about giving people a rigid structure, but allowing them to be really flexible about how they did things. So the idea, it was sort of flexible and emergent. So here's an example of a collection item, which is a simple list of things, and you can click on them and go through to the resource pages. In terms of community, we very quickly realised when we kind of spoke to people, this was not about kind of reinventing Facebook or doing anything like that, but what people wanted was to have some kind of representation in the system. So what we did in EdShare was we gave everybody a profile page, and we have sort of widgets that appear on that page that have different functions. So for example, you can have a very simple identity, quickly link to some sort of representation outside if that's what you want. It also acts as a kind of a bit of a page for people as well, so they can go to this page, upload new things, and also have an awareness of what's going on, so they can see the activity on their different items, see what their most downloaded things. So the whole point of EdShare really was to see this as a living cycle where stuff is not archived, it's not a dead end, it doesn't go to die, it's somewhere which is current, is updated, has lots of activity associated with it. So now we're a fair few years on and those projects are completed. We've been very lucky, we've got a number of different deployments of EdShare. So for example, some of our biggest deployments, so we have one in Southampton which acts as the university repository. We have something called the Language Box, which is for a UK community of language teachers. Something called the Humbox, which again is a UK community this time for the humanities. And also work with other universities, so people like the OU and Worcester, for example, to give them repositories as well. And by now we're kind of well over 5,000 or 6,000 online items in all of those different things. So you can find the EdShare software online. It's a set of extensions to EPrints. It's formally supported by EPrints services, so you can download it and have a go yourself, or you can contact them and they'll help you install it for a particular institution. Thank you very much.